So there's been a lot of excitement starting to build about beginning with New Testament Greek by Dr. Rob Plummer and Benjamin Merkle, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Hi, I'm Darryl Burling from Master New Testament Greek, and I help everyday people who love the Word of God to read it in the language that God inspired it. And if you're interested in that, hit subscribe and hit the notify bell to make sure you are informed when new videos come out. This video is sponsored by Logos Bible Software, and if you don't already have a copy of Logos Bible Software, go to mntg.me/logos and get 50% off the Fundamentals edition that you can use today. I'm hoping this grammar that we're talking about today will turn up in Logos Bible Software. We'll see. It's early days. In this video, we're talking about the beginning with New Testament Greek, a brand new grammar that's coming out from Dr. Rob Plummer and Benjamin Merkle in just a few weeks. Now, back in January, I sat down with Dr. Plummer and we talked about what's in this grammar. Why is this grammar different? Why is it that even though we've got so many grammars on the market now, what makes this grammar a little bit different? And what we saw in that first video, and I'll leave a link to it just up here, was that one of the key differences is that this video is very firmly and strongly set up so that students can have success. And I think this is going to really set this grammar apart from other grammars. Now, in this video, that video we talked about there was more about what's in this for the student. In this video, we're going to look a little bit behind the scenes in terms of the writing of the grammar, and also think about what's in this grammar for teachers of Biblical Greek, for those who want to take a class through Biblical Greek. How is this different? And so we're going to ask some of the questions that are kind of pertinent from a teaching point of view. And a couple of these are near and dear to my heart, and those are ones that are kind of linguistically oriented. And the first one is really, what have they done in this grammar when it comes to the idea of time in indicative mood verbs? And so let's ask that of Dr. Plummer, and then we'll go through some of the other questions in here, and we'll talk through those as well. Let's get into Dr. Plummer's answer. What have they done with time in the indicative mood?
We agree with the majority of scholarship, I think, on this, that finite verbs do still have a inherent component of time, usually, right? We recognize that there are factors, contextual factors, that can override that. I'm trying to use non-technical vocabulary for your audience. So, but we are correct. I think usually when we see an aorist verb, an indicative aorist verb, to assume that it's past referring. In fact, 85% of aorist indicatives are past referring. Now, once we get outside the indicative mood, we deal with subjunctives and we deal with participles and deal with imperatives. Time is only contextually determined there. It's not, I think majority of scholars agree, it's not inherent in the form. The form itself does not convey time. And, so that's where we go with that. And I think the vast majority of New Testament scholars would agree with that. And that agrees with kind of even though 100 years ago some of the terminology was different, I think that's in line with the best scholarship that's been going on for a long time.
So another question that is currently in discussion is the distinction between the middle and the passive voice. So what does Dr. Plummer and Dr. Merkle do with the passive voice in this grammar? How do they treat the passive voice in beginning with New Testament Greek?
Yeah, because it's increasingly been recognized and spoken about that it's long been recognized, but it's more included now in beginning and intermediate grammars. I think that passive forms can frequently convey a middle idea. And so some people have argued we should call them medial passives, call every middle or passive form medial passive, reminding us it could be middle, it could be passive. But we have not followed that terminology just because it's non-standard. We've tried to keep to the standard terminology. We still call them, passive. The forms are passive. We're trying to not do too many strange things so that a teacher wouldn't feel like I can't adopt this grammar because it uses a lot of terms I don't use. But then we do explain and illustrate how the passive, even in the beginning grammar, which is kind of, I think, not always typical, we illustrate how that passive form can convey a middle idea, both in the instruction within the chapter and in the examples as well, and in the practice exercises. That's another thing, a benefit of this grammar. It has extensive kind of graded practice exercises where you have, practicing a simple idea and then building on that. And then you have translation sentences. All the translation sentences are from the New Testament. And then we have the answer key included with the book so students can check themselves.
Another element of beginning Greek grammars that's really important is what's the pedagogical approach? Have they taken a traditional grammar translate approach, or are they more taking a slightly different approach? And again, in this question, I ask the comparison of, say, a Gibson and Campbell type of grammar versus, something like a Mounce or something along those lines. So there's a slightly different approach there. But how does this grammar approach the pedagogy of biblical Greek? Here's the answer.
So in the introduction to it, we give credit to Stephen Baugh, who was Ben Merkle's teacher, who in his book he has similar homework exercises where he starts with match what is, for example, I just randomly opened here to chapter 4, and so you're matching what is third person plural, that's a they. What is second person singular? That's it's kind of simple. And then the next section is just identify the voice of the verb, and so you middle aorist passive, and then you build to simple translation sentences, all taken from the New Testament. And then there's also an optional translate from English back to Greek. Of course, some people will choose not to do that. Professors will choose not to do that. But we also have made up English sentences using the vocabulary the students know and have them translate back into Greek, just to, again, to wire the brain both ways. And so, yeah, I think through that, their students are just increasingly the simple exercises first, building, and then applying that all in a final translation. And there are benefits to translating made-up sentences, but most students, I find, have the most joy and fulfillment when they're translating from the New Testament, because that's what they're preparing to do. So I could see potentially us providing a digital resource online that had a bunch of made-up sentences that we haven't done that yet, but that'd be easy to do. But the ones given in the book are derived from the New Testament. So people within a week or two of beginning class are translating complete sentences from the Greek New Testament, and that's exciting for them. That's why they're learning to do this.
I really like going to the texts of the Koine period and getting students translating there right from the beginning, because it's native Greek speakers conveying ideas in their own language from their own worldview, rather than a 21st century or 20th century kind of worldview being inserted into an old language, which has a very different worldview.
Yeah, or just the kind of the frustration of translating nonsense sentences because their vocabulary is so limited. The bread of the demons is eating the joy of the children. That just doesn't nourish your soul to translate sentences like that. And it takes someone who's very skilled to construct nonsense sentences that really do reflect the word order and lexical, syntactical kind of choices that a first century writer would make. I think it's very difficult to artificially mirror that well.
So another question that comes with that is, how have you ordered this grammar?
In this grammar, Ben and I, we we delay the alphabet till the last chapter. No, just kidding. No. We decided still to start with the alphabet. And then we deal with first and second declension nouns. I think probably if you look at 100 introductory grammars, 90% of them will do that, right?
Yeah.
And then we kind of overview verbs and start with the present indicative verb, then imperfect indicative, and kind of build from there, mixing verbs, and then bring back in third declension nouns, and obviously finish the semester with more difficult concepts like participles and imperatives and the optative and things like that. But specifically, I do think it's better personally to have nouns and verbs like introduced kind of along together, because otherwise you can't read the Bible because you can't have a sentence. And so one of the things we're trying to do is have actual sentences from the Bible, the joy of reading actual clauses and verses. And so to do that, we have to have both nouns and verbs. And I think from my experience, I've never taught it. I know that, like you mentioned, there are some people who, wait to introduce verbs till the middle of the semester. I've never done that. I think that would be frustrating for me. But again, sometimes people say, well, what beginning Greek grammar should I use? And many times, quite honestly, people teach what the best from the grammar they learn from, right? Because it's a system they're familiar with, and they just it makes the most sense to them because they learned in that way. So, people learn that way. I'm sure that they could use that effectively.
Now, some seminaries are shortening down the amount of time they actually have to teach biblical Greek. Now, this makes a huge difference when it comes to the approach to Greek, and not only that, but also the ability to select a grammar. Not all grammars are designed to be flexible enough to teach the basics in one semester versus 2 semesters. So here's a question for this grammar: is this designed to be taught in 1 semester or 2? And I think you'll find the answer to this question really interesting. I know I did.
Well, it's written such that it could be used for 1 or for 2 semesters, recognizing that in the college level, this would be used over a whole year.
Right.
At many seminaries, it would be covered in 1 semester. Some seminaries, it would be covered in 2. So there's different approaches to how to do this. At our seminary, we would cover this in 1 semester. At our undergraduate program, we would cover this in 2. And in addition to the 24 chapters, there are those 6 interspersed they're really basically chapters too, but there are no homework exercises or paradigms. It's just addressing text criticism or critical text of the Greek New Testament, vocabulary building resources, things like that. So.
And what about the teachers? Now, there's some really good tools available in this grammar for students, but what about for teachers? So the question I have is, does this grammar provide any additional tools for those who want to teach using this grammar in a seminary or a classroom environment?
Quizzes, tests, PowerPoint. I'm excited. When I recorded all my videos for this, I created OneNote files. I'm familiar with OneNote, where it's the program I used to write on. So I pasted in all the charts and things like that, and the homework exercises and the vocabulary. It's all pasted in as actual, SPL Greek font and things like that. So it can be manipulated, and so we'll make that OneNote file available as well. So teachers who have a writable tablet can pull that up and can write on it and do the homework, do the vocabulary. I think that'll be a big attraction too.
Now, we recorded this video back in January 2020, so January 8th, 2020, roughly. So I asked the question, when did you finish work on this grammar? It really, there's a long lead time between writing and publishing, right? So here's the answer to that question.
The grammar's been done for a while. So yeah, it's at the publisher. But it will
months out from publication though, right?
You will, Lord willing, come out in the summer of 2020. Right?
Yeah.
Summer of 2020. And we just changed the title. It should be set now. Beginning with New Testament Greek, as you rightly called it. The getting started, it just didn't look right with the way the words looked on the cover. It looked like started Greek,
right,
which is bad English.
Yeah.
It works well with the intermediate grammar, deeper Greek, but started Greek doesn't look so good. So beginning with New Testament Greek, and there will be a website that will be prominently and clearly displayed on there. I think it's going to be BNT Greek. I think it's going to be bntgreek.com, beginning with New Testament Greek.com, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay. So because of the publisher, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with that.
And finally, when you've got 2 authors, the question often comes, well, who approached what element of this grammar? Who wrote which pieces of it? How did the work get divided up? And with Dr. Plummer and Dr. Merkle, they have quite a long-term relationship. They've been working together for quite some time. So this was a really collaborative approach. Here's how they broke this up and how they worked together on this grammar.
Well, again, it's a little bit unusual how this came together, and that Ben was kind of pushing me to go ahead and do this. So he, in many ways, kind of came up with, like, he'd send me here's a first draft on this chapter, and then I would add a section and tweak stuff and change this, and then I wrote certain parts of the book, like I wrote all the 6 interspersed sections, and I wrote most of the significant sections, but then I would take his structure and kind of play with it and change stuff. So it was a little bit, honestly, it was a little bit different from the way I normally write a book, because it was co-authored, and because Ben is such a go-getter, he wanted to kind of pushing me on this. Now, once that was done, like, I did all the videos related to it. So that's kind of, Ben is more of a detail guy. Like, he likes to make charts, and he has vocabulary lists with all the same number of vocabulary words, and he knows, like, he's really good at that kind of thing. He's good at a lot of stuff, but and my forte in this, I think what I bring to the table that adds value to the grammar, as opposed to just some other grammar you get off the shelf, is some of the creative teaching discussion, some of the way things are nuanced and described with the beginning student in mind, and then I think the accompanying videos to try to lay that out, and are really, because I find that students, if you just give them a chapter to read, even if it's a well-written chapter, they have a hard time with it sometimes. But if you give them a video first and they understand it, then they can read the chapter. So I think that's, I may be wrong, but I think that's going to be the benefit of this book is people will readily accessible free video lecture that hopefully is of high quality. And then they can use the book well, and it's not like they have to buy some additional module, and it's a different person doing the teaching versus the grammar and all that. It's just kind of integrated. So again, I hope if it helps a lot more people, or even a few more people, but hopefully helps a lot more people come to love and read the Greek New Testament, we'll be very gratified by that.
So my grateful thanks to Dr. Plummer and Dr. Merkle for producing this book, and particularly to Dr. Plummer for spending the time with me to answer these questions so that we can provide you with better answers and better information. So what do you think of this grammar? Is this a grammar you're looking forward to as well? If so, leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know why. And if you like this grammar and you like this interview and value kind of getting together with scholars and people like Dr. Plummer, hit the like button. That's really helpful for this video as well. Now, if you're interested in learning Biblical Greek, I want to encourage you to go to masterntgreek.com/roadmap, and you can download your roadmap to mastery today. Thank you, Sue, to Logos Bible Software for sponsoring this video, but most of all, thank you to you. It's you watching this video that makes it so good. You encourage me and push me on, so thank you to you for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, keep taking small consecutive steps toward mastery. We'll see you then.